Hi, I'm Micah.
Hey, I'm Christa.
Welcome to Bad People, a podcast that seeks to create a safe place to wrestle with life's deeply personal questions. Our aim is to be honest with ourselves first and foremost, to confess where necessary and throw stones at our own glass houses, examining experiences with curiosity and vulnerability. These conversations are not an attempt to provide answers or offer simple platitudes. Rather, our goal is to hold open-ended dialogue around what simply is and do so from a level playing field, without fear of judgment or shame. Join Christa and I at your own risk as we excavate the ways belief, community, trauma, and relationship has impacted who we both are today.
Yay. What do I always say? Thanks, Micah.
Yeah.
That always sounds so down. It's episode 10, guys. So exciting.
The double digit.
I know. I can't believe we made it through season 1. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I want to say we're proud of our little endeavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
Me too. We always said, if there's just 2 listeners, Micah and
it's
myself.
worth it.
Yeah. I mean, Grant would have to be in there too, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been cool to see that it's been like, yeah, there's a few of you out there, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I think that, we've been reflecting on kind of like our initial intention behind this.
Yeah.
And today is, this episode, confessions, something like that.
Fine. We didn't think through the title.
I know, again. It makes me think of that Usher song. Did you ever?
Oh, yeah. These are my confessions.
Yeah. Mike is a really good singer. Please keep going.
Oh, that takes me back.
I know, right?
Did you watch Usher at the Super Bowl?
No.
Wasn't he in the Super Bowl?
He was. And everyone said it was so good. I think I saw him it was Alicia Keys, I think.
Yeah. I just saw all the flack Alicia was getting for not being a great singer. Poor Alicia. I love her.
She's amazing.
I like her. I like her raw feel.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You guys should check out Micah because she does songwriting, obviously, but she also sings other people's stuff. And
I do like
sing and plays the piano on her. Mostly your main Instagram account, right?
Sometimes when I feel brave enough to share it.
Awesome. Bravery always. Come on.
It's like bravery.
Yeah. Today is a bit, trying to be brave. I mean, the whole thing was an exercise in that.
Totally.
Yeah, and like showing up and I guess. I mean, I was saying to you earlier, I'm like, it's pretty cool that you were willing to stand with me and to kind of go, well, I'm not sure exactly what this is going to look like, but I feel drawn to it. And I'm going to associate with somebody who, for one, you didn't know super well. And for 2, I mean, there's definitely there's a story. Yeah. That doesn't sound great about my actions and who I am. And you were willing to kind of risk whatever implications that meant for your own life.
Yeah.
Dealing with it.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think it's been good. And so, today, I think in the beginning we had this fun, it's bad people with good stories. We thought that was like a really cute intro, and it kind of references like the biblical aspect of what is it, Romans 8:28, that God works all things together for good or whatever.
Yeah. And I guess your original thought around the concept was to challenge that idea of black and white, kind of good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. We wanted to look at a bit more of the nuance that that being a human actually involves.
Totally. And the universality.
Just pretend universality.
Thank you. Pretend I didn't say it like that. I'm terrible with words. But that maybe there's this common theme for us all that we'd like to kind of say oh, that is really bad. We were listening on an episode this week, Dak Shepard.
Yeah. Armchair Expert.
So
great
good.
Podcast.
So good. And one of the episodes was covering a sociopath.
Yeah.
And thanks.
Sociopathy.
Yes, there you go. You can say it. That was a hard one for me too.
And narcissism. We were kind of listening.
Yeah. And thanks to Kaitana, who's also another listener. She put me onto that episode. And
I was wondering how I was like, how did you just like pick out these?
Yeah, I know. So good.
Yeah.
The narcissism one just happened to be like kind of, it's been a recent one, like or whatever for his. But yeah, that one specifically, it was from her reference. And so good to see somebody like where we could all like, I think Dax's comment is like, oh no, a sociopath, bad, like bad human.
Yeah, yeah.
But the humanity that was brought from that person, like, and sharing their story, laying it all out there, confessing that they're this bad person, but look at all these like fascinating stories that she had to share. Like this bad human with incredibly interesting, valuable, helpful for like the human condition to understand. A good story.
Yeah. Which is, I think, why language is so crazy, because and the power it has, I think, is often just so underestimated, because we hear sociopath and we all immediately have these like ideas of what that looks like.
Which she was saying, like she was like talking about how she stalked people and she stabbed somebody in the head as a child. Like those are the images that I would think of.
Yeah.
And yet you get to know this person like through like as she's interacting in this interview, and you're like,
you realize, oh, it's actually like a personality kind of disorder. Some people are born with this. And and their approach was really cool, of not cool, but
curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity, which is just enables them to kind of like get into her experience and hear it.
Yeah.
And she's not by any means giving a pass to all sociopath
at all. She's like,
and
still take us over for dinner. Yeah.
But it's just really interesting to hear from someone who has that diagnosis.
Totally. And that she's still a human.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think sometimes I mean, I feel like I've faced that a little, like and written off, you know, like, well, once you're kind of defined as a bad person, and I think, you know, in recent months kind of going like, I'm a bad person, like engage with caution, like, you know, just to kind of protect oneself of like, like I would just, and I felt this kind of like, I think husbands are like, you know, why? Like, like, well, that's the girl that doesn't understand that marriage is sacred.
Yeah.
Keep your husbands away kind of thing.
Or hide your husband.
Totally. Or maybe whatever. Like, there's those sorts of things that I think can come along with whatever, like, label that gets exposed.
Totally.
Right? And that's what I think today we kind of want to endeavor into is like, just like that woman had a lot of bravery to go, well, this is what is.
Yeah.
Call me bad or good or whatever, but let's look at it all.
Yeah.
Like, let's peel it all apart.
Yeah.
Be super vulnerable.
This is my story. And
And like in that original Bumpo video that we had, it was like, confess with us.
Yeah.
Like that's the point of this whole thing, is to discuss and to look at things. And confession is
it's just honesty.
It is, right? And it's done with another person. Community.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's no shame when one confesses. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tricky ones, right?
Yeah.
Because
I think we attempt to say, I mean, we say in our intro to this podcast, like, we want to share these things from a level playing field. And I think between you and I, that's what we've cultivated. And, but the reality is that not everyone is on a level playing field, and some, people will see things differently, or may not agree with us, or may not be in a place to like feel curious about some things that we are talking about.
Yeah, which is interesting, because I think we've said like engage with caution, and for some people it's not safe for them to engage with our content, and nor should they then. But if you are here, let's delve into some specifics today. Like, that's like, I kind of am interested to get into some like what I kind of, as I was living them, were like my not so shining moments in the past like year and a half. And yet it wasn't in that same sort of way where it was like shame based. It was just like, I'm going to go forward in these things that I used to not agree with.
Yeah.
And now I'm stripping those things away. I'm going to engage and test to see, okay, what was true from the old belief pattern that I used to have.
Yeah. That you lived by.
Yeah.
So,
and why do I find myself in these places where these things that I'm going to participate with, like, for one, they're exposing a need that I have.
Yeah.
A need that is like, it makes sense. It's a good thing to acknowledge, and it's a good thing to try and like, I don't think that we, like, I think a lot of Christians like to go, well, Jesus like fulfills all these needs. And I think I've said, well, he's not holding my hand at night or whatever, you know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
As I raised like what was like, full time, like during the week, raising my kids, like, like the nitty gritty of like, somebody just hold me, like that ridiculousness. Yeah. I shouldn't, in theory, feel like that, but that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And the answer for me was not to just stay in my marriage. As complicated as that probably sounds, or different, that people, that would seem like just a good answer, like, well, you shouldn't have left or whatever. And I'm like, well, that wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So where does that leave me now?
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
And like from the top, some, like, a lot of our conversations have been, I don't know, not the lightest. Like we are kind of getting into harder things to talk about in this podcast. And I think we've touched on a lot of like surface things so far. Yeah. And just like symptoms of what is really going on. Yeah. And what you and I are both kind of like plowing through internally on the day-to-day, and having to navigate, like, as a result of all these circumstances and events as well.
Yeah. And like,
that's what we want to kind of get into a little bit.
Totally. And like, just as like a trigger warning, like depending on where our conversation goes, like there are themes of like suicide for me, like abortion. I know for some people that can be a really tricky thing to engage with from their past or from just like moral stance. Yeah. Obviously infidelity. And then the other, like how we outplay like sex in life or relationship and things like that. But I would say those guys are the more like triggering ones for people. So and we hope, just to kind of tease like season 2, like one of the format we'll take today is a bit more like interview style. Like I'll share a bit more of the nitty gritty, and you'll, I think, kind of
interview,
probe questions and stuff. And that's our hope for season 2, is that we have some amazing people that have engaged with our content and might identify as like, kind of feeling bad or wanting to kind of like see where their story can fit into this conversation. Yeah. And so we are excited to interview or talk with people in season 2. So that's kind of like why we're going to give this a little try and kind of go, okay, let's figure out how this format goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we kind of started this whole thing off basically going from you kind of laying it out there and saying you had an affair, and me kind of saying, in a sense, like, I lost my faith, or have let go of beliefs about God that I once had, which to some people wouldn't be anything significant at all, but to a Christian community it can be quite like a thing.
Jarring.
It's jarring and can cost you, community and certain friendships and stuff. But do you want to start kind of back there with like?
Yeah, probably. Like, because that was the moment, right? Like where I was like, oh, like something is wrong with this. And I think now looking back, self-abandonment has been like a pretty huge theme in my life. Like not only abandonment just in general, but then seeing like how I perpetuate that. Yeah. And I think early on in the podcast saying like the thing that I thought would never happen, the thing that I was working my whole life towards like protecting my kids from and myself from. Yeah. No, I was like nobody else. Like I did the thing. Yeah. I saw my like self engaging in some weird way with like a birth, like the person that I interacted with was like the same story as my birth father, which I was like, how could he do those things? And yet I'm like, oh, but I just did the exact same thing, which was interesting.
Yeah. So you heard those stories about your father.
Yeah, like him having like another family.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
that was part of your kind of origin story.
Yeah, and then seeing that and like kind of going, well, like that's insane. How could he do that? And me being okay to do the exact same thing was kind of wild.
Yeah.
And that's where like that self-abandonment going, like I never took action before it got to that point to then go, no, that's crossing my own like integrity boundaries. You know, like I'm not going to have an affair because I don't believe that that's the right way to do life.
Yeah.
And I abandoned that part of me because my need was so great and whatever that was. Like, and I think that I found like there's these saying like I found a voice in the affair. I found like sexual choice. I found like if I really peel it back, like mutuality, like an equal playing field. Like because that's the thing, like I think that I wrestled with a little bit. People like to just say you had an affair, right? Like that's bad.
Yeah.
Like, and in the past, like even in the last couple weeks, like where I kept going, God, you set me up. Like I never wanted to have this affair. And I'm like, but you do this, like this is the story of the Garden of Eden, right? Like where the tree is there. He tells us not to eat of the tree. We clearly like have this need and desire to eat of said tree. It's a tree of knowledge of like good and evil, or God's knowledge essentially. We listen to like this beastly aspect of ourselves, you know, or whatever. Because again, like what I said just 5 seconds ago, I was like, I get fucking annoyed, that like we keep going like, it's Satan and like he's a serpent and all this. And like, no, what attack? Yeah, like what is happening there? Like I think it has more to do with what's going on inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And like the lies we listen to, like based on like
that are often self-destructive. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, but it's funny because once we get that knowledge, we see our nakedness.
Yeah.
Nakedness is a universal thing. And I'm like, okay, so it's not that the tree existed because that's from God. It's not that we ate of the fruit and listened to the beast and then we see the truth of like what actually is. That's not where the issue lies. For me, the issue lies is in the covering it up.
Yeah.
And then
covering your nakedness.
Yeah. Like, no, there's no problem. I'm naked and it's fine and whatever. Like that's where the sin lies for me.
Yeah.
Is like, and that's where I think as the church, everybody or a lot of people were sort of like, well, you had this affair, you did this bad thing. Like, stay in your marriage, like speak truth and all this. And as I kept like speaking truth, it just became more and more apparent that it's like the sex with the married person and me being married was not the issue. The issue was like everything underneath that, right?
Yeah.
And so
that the needs underneath that
totally
were in that moment met by or perceived to be met in this relationship. Yeah.
And again, it was just like another kind of way to escape or to find like wholeness in something that, it's fascinating to look at it. And I wish it was as simple as like, just, well, you should have known not to have like extramarital affair or whatever relations. Like, but it's by actually engaging in that helped me see. And I mean, again, just to say, like, I wish it wasn't so.
Yeah.
The destruction that caused.
Yeah.
Like, is so unjust for one, the other people, for two, my partner, for three, my children. Like, that's so shitty.
Yeah.
And yet it happened. I can't change it.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, the nakedness is exposed. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And I think there was a covering it up with the like pray more, repent, like all these things. Those were just band-aids. Like those were like me putting on the clothes instead of sitting there completely exposed and going, why the fuck would I let that happen?
Yeah.
Self-abandon myself, the things that I valued most in life.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. Anyways, that's where it was.
Yeah. So because you kind of, you say that you've learned, well, this affair kind of like showed you some things about yourself, and referring to like the things that were kind of prescribed to you that were more just like band-aids over what the need was.
Yeah.
Like, have you kind of come to figure out a bit about that need, like that deep need?
Yeah, it was funny because like in trying to put the marriage back together, I realized that having a voice and feeling like equal to my partner, I think I referenced that before, was really important to me. And we weren't able to figure that out. But that was like a strong need.
Yeah.
I then chose to end my marriage. So that's tricky because that's not, the prescription would have been, no, stay. But no, my need to have a voice and to feel like, I don't know, respected, heard, or whatever was so great that then, okay, marriage needs to end so I can at least feel like baseline, normal, and okay. So here we go. We're going to engage in this way. And I'm like, okay, like that's a need. I think that's a fair need to have. Like if you don't have that going on.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
What need? The need
to feel like I can think and speak without
the equality.
Yeah. That like that.
And your own agency.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like I don't put that on my ex-partner. Like I don't put that on them that they were necessarily like doing something to, I just couldn't exist in that sphere. I don't know, like I'm still trying to peel that away, but no way, like it just was not happening where I was feeling like I could be heard or things were changing for my own self. Like I could not be myself in that existence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so, and why is that? I think it's like it really threatened my sense of self. So that like baseline just existing for me has been tricky. Like I feel like I think that goes back to feeling it's like the abortion story or whatever.
So let's explore that a little, because like that is right back to your very beginning. Like something, have you always kind of like what have you always felt this need kind of throughout your life? Or
like I've always, it's funny to empathize with, like since I was a teenager, a woman always has the right to choose and has agency over whether she brings a child into this world or not. Like that is like a choice that, because I always am like, God is a God of choice. Like that seemed just natural or normal or whatever. But also to know that my existence has caused a ton of pain, and nothing that I did in those early, like I just exist, and it causes my birth mother a great deal of pain. My existence, from what I perceive from my mom, has caused her a lot of pain. And now,
because to recap, you were adopted at birth, and your birth mom
had to like I think it's I have not had to give up a child, but I think that would not be a super fun experience. And then to consistently, every time I would see her, I could see the pain that would cause. And so just like that deep sense of like, shit, I keep trying so hard to like, I don't know, like
my existence just seems to cause
pain. And doesn't seem to matter what I do. That's just like, that seems true. And that's hard.
It is hard.
And then how do you show up in a world where you're like always having to overcompensate? Then it becomes, that you just perform the shit out of everything, and you are like,
you just have to fight for that. For any positive response to your existence, right? Which I can see how like sort of love and marriage would fill that in a way. That need for like, or the need for you and like being wanted by someone and
try to do it differently. Like, that was funny to me to go like, okay, you were like the Christian way of life was like, okay, this is how you right that wrong, right? Like where they almost had it, but then didn't ever, because like what my birth mother was marrying, wasn't a real thing. My birth mother didn't exist in the way that she thought he did. And so now I get the
devastating.
I know, right? Like crazy. And now I get the chance to do it the right way. to have a godly marriage and to choose like, you know, to choose to have kids. Like I had the privilege of all of my pregnancies were chosen, right? And like, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And then that's where it gets a little dark because I saw myself risking, that's what the affair kind of showed me, was this really not fun side of this self-destructive, risky behavior where I risked getting pregnant. Like more than one time. And going like, why would I do that? Like, why would I risk bringing somebody like myself into this world, knowing how that existence would be for them? How complicated that was for me. Why am I doing this? Again. Because that's not fair to that. Anyway, so we'll get into that a little bit more as I see this thing unfold. But that's not cute. So anyways, so leave the marriage or whatever. That was a year and a half ago. And then as I'm trying to engage in this new reality, this new world, right? Like move, try to like reestablish what life looks like. 4 kids and just me with them during the week. And then obviously, there's like a parenting arrangement. And then, seeing how exhausting. It's exhausting being a parent in general. And then like, getting to a place where, like I say, when we laughed at that, where I would hold my own hand at night because I'm like, or I'd put pillows, literally. I'd keep like a bunch of pillows in my bed and be like, okay, just like pillow weight on like around me. It just feels like you're very alone and it's scary to feel like there's no comfort. Like I don't have parental support really. And I not a partner support. So then they're like, oh, okay, you got to pour out a lot to your kids.
You still got to give to them and parent, but you're feeling so alone. And
totally. And I can see even with my friends, like the drain on them is more than it's supposed to be, right? Like I'm a mess because everything's coming to the surface. All of my worst fears are happening. So I'm like triggered as fuck all the time, right? I'm just like, okay. And then like, okay, no shit, I can't burn my friends out. So then like, where the hell do I get? Because I'm praying like crazy and I'm like, on my knees all the time. And then I like end up getting I think I was working like 3 jobs or whatever because trying to like reestablish myself in a world that I don't exist in, right? Like I don't financially exist in this world. And I'm like, okay, cute. This is like not sustainable, but yet I'm like, this is the only way forward. And it was funny because like working those jobs, I like remembered, oh, right, I'm a hard worker. Like I'm friendly and like I was really helpful to like remember who I was. But it also made me exhausted and then more vulnerable to, it just made me more like, I'm just a vulnerable person, right? Well, I was. So back then. Just trying to remember who I was. Which sucks. Like I should know who I am at 38 years old, but
well, I don't think so. I mean, technically, in theory, we should all know who we are, right?
Totally.
But I mean, I think there are, there are things. I mean, I feel like I went through an identity transformation at like 32. Again, the like transitioning from someone who I thought I was to being like, oh shit, that went haywire, and now who am I again? Like, so I feel like I think there's can be fluid too.
And I think like the normal kind of like there's a normal way to not a normal.
Well, maybe just in a way that you feel grounded, like you feel like yes, sure, life is tricky and throws shit at all of us, you know, like a lot of times, especially as adults, but like that sense of like I can sort of like navigate my way through this, knowing kind of.
And that's what I found like was not present for me as I kept going forward, was there was no grounding. I kept feeling like the earth was falling from under me. And I'm like, okay, so again, to try and be curious about that and go like, well, what is that? And I just referenced as like, this girl on TikTok was saying, this might save your life. These 4 words, like, I do not have blue hair or whatever. Maybe this will land. But where she says like, oh, if somebody says like you have blue hair, you can easily say, oh, well, I don't have blue hair. My hair is dark or whatever. But for me, I kept hearing that, like where people would be like, or I would say this to myself, like, okay, what value do I have in this world? Like, or somebody might go like, you're not a great, like, not, it's so overtly like you're not a great mother, but like kind of, right?
Yeah. Imply a little.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that would take me down like a spiral of like, shit, I'm not a good mother, right? Like I have been neglectful to my children when I was trying to escape in this affair. Like that, there's weight there, right?
Yeah.
But maybe I am a good mother. Maybe that was trying to protect them from a scary side of me, or trying to protect myself so that I could show up for them. So it's just like constantly like, wait, is this thing true? I don't know if it's true about myself. And that's what I consistently still have to fight.
Totally. Yeah.
At the end of that keeps coming back to this like existence piece, because that's where suicide continues to be like, not thankfully, like I'm not down the road of like, there's like a razor or something like that in my hand. It's like more like this ideation around like, it's better that I don't exist.
Yes.
I just keep making things worse. There is no hope for this story to be redeemed where somehow I can just exist and it doesn't cause pain to other people.
Yeah.
So that's a scary, again, that's one of those root kind of like trauma things that or weaknesses in my life that I keep trying to prove that, no, I'm a net positive kind of thing. Like, so like or even just net zero. Like there's no, like, I'm just a nerd. That would be nice. Like, I don't even need to be a positive thing in somebody's life. I just need to baseline feel like I don't always make things worse.
Yeah.
So anyways, so seeing that those sorts of things were happening, and then just how insecure I was or whatever. And then like, for whatever reason, I perceived like this, like, I don't know what was going on with another side of like, I don't know how to say that properly. There was some sort of like draw towards the affair person again. I was like, that's not happening. I know for one and done, I'm never engaging with a married person again. It's a totally different story if somebody is single, but fuck that. Like, not happening. That I knew for certain. I did not then know how to like ward off attention from somebody else. Like that was another like don't have relationships with coworkers. That's probably like another one of those standard things that most people know, like not to engage with. But for me, it went from like, well, I know that I'm not going to engage with a married person, but a coworker is a little like, I was like, I don't know how to fight off both of these things. And I just plain wasn't strong enough. And I'm like, well, I can't fight. So I'm going to go down this path because at least they're not married, and I can't, like, they're fulfilling a need that I desperately have. And I'm like, and I can't seem to fill that any other way. Like it is a massive hole, and I'm like, shit, the attention is great. You're going to give me a hug. That sounds awesome. And so I ended up ended up letting this person into my life. And it's so funny because I never would have considered having like, I'm going to get into it, having like an adult sleepover with like a coworker. And I remember calling like my best friend and crying, literally crying and saying, I'm so sorry. I don't want, and the only reason I was crying is because I didn't want to put her through like this. She walked through so much with me, and now I'm going to risk hurting myself and hurting her. Like they don't like to see me in pain. And I'm like, I know this is the way forward because I am not strong enough to do this any other way. Like I in those moments, I just couldn't do it another way. And
I think some people would argue probably in hearing this story that there's no issue at all. With what you're choosing to do as an adult. So how do you kind of feel about that?
I think that the issue lay with it being a coworker. So I think there is no other issue except that ended up putting my job. It just makes my job that
more complicated.
Right? Which I think that's where I felt like, ooh, and I knew I could like manage that. But it just is like, it's an unnecessary, like, Christa,
conflict.
Yeah, like, cut that, like, just kill that off and just, that that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I literally, like, couldn't. Just like I couldn't say, like, no, I'm not going to pursue this with the married person.
Yeah.
And that was so interesting. Like, I didn't have that strength within me to go, like, no, the attention feels great. I don't have any other male. Like, I don't have a dad. Like, these are actual, like, real, like, voids in my life. I don't have a dad. I don't engage with other males.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's not safe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, crap, here's this one. How do I want a male perspective in my life?
Yeah.
Actually, oh, shit, I do need a hug. Like, that's actually, like, just basic. Like,
well, just at the purest, most simplistic level, maybe not purist, but, like, like, we all crave that. And if I
think that is pure. Like, that's the thing where we kind of get this morality in church where
it just depends what angle you want to look at it, what context you want to take. But I think, and especially someone coming from that dynamic where you've been in a relationship and however healthy or unhealthy it may have been, like, you had that companionship and then all of a sudden that's like ripped away. And on top of it, you're kind of being shamed and blamed for things. And
it's a tricky road that I specifically had to walk, like having your quote unquote sin laid bare. Like nobody was kidding themselves around what moral failure meant. Like there was a letter written to the church that I part of.
Church was informed of
right. And so 500 strangers and a handful of people I know really, really well know this thing, right? Which that's a really hard road to walk. I feel really thankful that that's my road because I don't have to hide. That was okay, it all was exposed.
Yeah.
I'm like, shit, there's the nakedness. There it all is. And yep, I'm a terrible human. And I remember going to strangers and literally like new people I'd meet, I'd have to show up as this version of myself and go hi, I know you don't know me, but you should know the thing about me. I had an affair. And no, it wasn't just a normal affair. Oh no, this person was married with very young children. And literally because I'm I can't live in a world where I'm a pretty nice person to be around. And I can sell this fake version of myself.
Yeah.
Which isn't the fake version of myself. But I'm no, this nice person that seems probably you'd look at me and go oh no, they're not divorced or they're not, they didn't cheat on their husband and family and do this thing to another family. That's probably not what you would assume.
Yeah.
And I'm I can't. No, let's just, if strangers know this thing about me, well, this new friend I'm engaging with should also, which is super fucked up. And
what were people's responses to that? It's just this is the worst about me. Hi, do you still want to be friends?
Literally. But I'm it's better that than a couple months in, they meet somebody and
totally.
Oh, this, well, you know what you did, right?
I can see how that would almost be this preemptive, to protect.
It was trying to protect myself.
Yeah.
So no, you should know that I'm kind of I didn't think that was great. You should know I'm kind of scummy. You should know that, and maybe your husband should know that, because I don't know. I literally just, that's how I felt back then, was no, protect yourself from me, because I'm not as I appear. Because I think to normal people think I'm nice human.
I mean, we all like to give off that
totally
appearance that we're nice. And I mean, that's the social game we all play of
totally
being
So I was just not having it, which is also weird and fucked up, but whatever, that's how I was showing up in life. And then anyways, with the adult sleepover, the whole thing, and I mean, really, I looked on paper and that relationship seemed like a good idea. I done on paper was oh yeah, this could work out really nicely, not attached, looking for somebody. Genuine, care, kind of what we would talk about seemed like a good fit. And then it slowly just got complicated. And I slowly saw myself, just redoing these patterns of like, for one, having unprotected sex again, which my friends lovingly had to go, no, always lovingly, but also a bit more strong and kind of going like, this story doesn't always end up in the way where you don't get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
have you thought about that kind of thing?
Yeah. Exactly. And then like that, and then having somebody go like, that's self-destructive. Like somebody said that to me.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's actually really helpful to hear. And then I'm like, but why am I in? Like, no, I'm not. And then like, oh crap, yes, I am. Yeah. And so just like put a pin in that. But I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Thankfully, I had a therapist through this whole thing. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting because this whole time I vowed, like, I'm like, there's no secrets or lies in my life. Yeah. Like, I have this stupid tattoo. It says Veritas or whatever, which means truth. And it comes from like when Matt, my ex, and I were in Harvard or like whatever, Boston. There's like this school there has like Veritas like everywhere. Yeah. And it means truth, right? And so anyways, at that point, after the affair, I had that tattooed on me for that reason and a few others or whatever. But anyways, that being the main one, going like, no, like remember what you gave up. Like I want to say I was a pretty honest person with my own shit. I had to like pretend and lie to accommodate a lot of other people's stuff or whatever. But for my own life, I wanted to go, like, I remember confessing to a few people, like, I'm like, I hurt my child. Like, that's the life that I did lead. Yeah. But then got sucked into like just having to like, I don't know, like, I don't know how to explain that.
Damage control.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Anyways, so in this whole thing, just going like, I'm having adult sleepovers, which sounds so juvenile, but that's literally what I would say. Because again, in a church context, like, you don't have sex outside of marriage. Yeah. That doesn't happen. And that wasn't something that I thought I would engage with. Yeah. And that is the way forward for me, like in these days, or at least was. Like I'm not in a relationship right now, but I can't imagine that would, I don't know how I feel about it. I guess it's person dependent, but anyways, but I'm like, no, I'm unwilling to feel ashamed for having like that need. And for like, it wasn't like with random people. It was somebody I was engaging what I thought was like a relationship, mutual relationship with, like with a future. And fulfilled, definitely. Like, I think humans have sexual needs. Christians don't always like to sort of hear that, but 100%, I think for like anybody that's not in a Christian context. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that was nice to kind of engage with in that way. Yeah. And then to sit in a church service and go, okay, do I feel shame around this? Yeah. And I didn't. And that was also very interesting. Yeah. Like, to kind of like test some of those things. Yeah. Now, I do remember my therapist saying stuff like, oh, when you engage sexually with somebody, like, you can become attached to them and accept things that you wouldn't normally accept. Okay. I'm like, okay, noted. And then definitely kind of saw that play out a little bit more where I probably...
You're attached in a different way.
Yeah. Totally, right? Where I think I could have eased up on that. But then again, like, just was not that place choosing to engage in a physical relationship with that person was my way forward. Yeah. It healed a bunch of stuff for me, and it helped me to connect with that person on a deeper level and to really test the relationship. And it was my way forward. Yeah. 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 It's probably like, not fun for some people to hear that. Yeah. You know, like people that care about my eternal salvation and stuff that would go like, you're making huge mistakes.
Yeah. In that sense, probably hard for some people to hear, but in the sense of like, okay, this deep need that you've struggled with and are like vulnerable to even more in relationship, I guess. Yeah. Where it's, in a couple of relationships already, it's kind of like played on that vulnerability to your detriment. And then And then kind of like after the affair, sounding like you are still struggling with that, like, who am I and do I even bring any worth to this world? And then, I mean, like, everyone has an opinion by the sounds of it as well, and like on your life and your actions and
how do I
what you should be doing. And like I just listening to that, I mean, I feel like that would be so confusing to kind of like, you're just taking in all these voices while still trying to figure out your own voice and what's best for you and who you are and what you do bring to like this planet and the people around you. And then, so like, how has that been changing it in any way, like your self-view over this last little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting to have a bit of distance now from that and then from everything else. Like, I'm 2 years out of like the affair being exposed. Year and a half. Like, I mean, it's nothing. And compared to like, I mean, somebody said to me the other day, like, after separation, you're like, it'll take a good 7 years for you to like feel like yourself. And I'm like, well, that's great. I know, I'm like, cool, that's
7 year.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, like, anyways, all that to say, now having a bit more distance is interesting because I'm like, okay, I did this, I think I referenced this really cool therapy where it was like, what's that called? Like using psychedelics to kind of help release trauma.
Yeah, like the somatic.
Yeah. Which was like, so like mine was like MDMA, like a version of that, and then like ketamine, which like they had to really like knock. Like it was like, oh, you need a lot of this. And I was like, okay, cute. And I could feel nothing.
Okay.
Emotions are super repressed for me, like very much like disconnect from like any emotional response that I should have. Like I can like feel it and then I'm like, nope. And then I definitely
know how to turn it off. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Were you always like that though? In your past, like even in your former relationship, was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly, yes.
Do you think that was a function of like,
like from
survive, like getting through it?
Yes. And like from childhood, like I remember like very, very early, like in trauma there, whatever, like all this therapy is like your inner child and stuff. And I'm like, I can't see her. Like, don't know
who is that.
But like lately remembering like this 3-year-old kind of curious person that was quickly like that she exists then and then never again, you know, because it was like emotion, whoa, like now I gotta perform and be this totally. And like I would see people interacting with their emotion, like like they had absolutely no control over like their own self and how like it was like the weirdest thing to observe. And I'm like, so in my brain it's like log emotion bad, like you got
that's what you learn from that.
Totally.
Or it's like super volatile, you don't know what might happen.
It made me feel
you don't want to like be out of control that way.
And so that was like, now if anybody like has these overt emotions, I completely shut down. And I just like, I can't think, I can't, like, I'm just, this is a freeze, like that would be the freeze. And then any sort of indicator that they could be that way, I'm become like a fawn, like I'm like that fawning response of like, I completely, again, self-abandon and like, okay, I have to monitor them. And that's how I've seen myself.
To prevent them from like having this emotional outburst.
Exactly. Then, because then I shut down. And then I can't, I'm no longer.
So it's like indirect self-preservation.
Exactly.
Of like, got to control you so that I am not like.
Exactly. Which is funny because it's good that you say the word control because I wouldn't have thought about it like that. I think that's what it is.
It's an attempt, right? Control.
Just to kind of like constantly manage.
Or pacify.
Manage. I would say manage more, but I think it's helpful to go, no, that's you trying to control the situation. Because that's like that toxic side of how I was showing up is like, oh no, like I will overextend and overexert myself. And like so much attention is given that way in order to like, okay, I'm going to like, and again, I do think it's different than control, but it is
different because I grew up with that dynamic too, where there was a lot of kind of emotional outbursts. And when when you're kind of around that from a younger age, you just, if it's the norm, then you kind of just learn to behave in a way that makes that endurable for you.
And you literally like put a pin in your own personality in order
you're just
okay, I have to like deal with this, which has nothing to do with like my needs, my wants, how I want to show up in this world. It all is like completely getting absorbed and needing to like manage that.
Yeah. It's like this hyper attunement to someone else, to their every need and move, and
which makes like me realize like why. And that's when I'm like, okay, these days I've just like completely disengaged from like many different aspects of life. Like I currently work for myself again, which feels like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like just like, super scary. Sure. But I just noticed like, right now it's not healthy for me to like challenge this idea of like having to interact with other people and see how I show up, because I will always abandon myself to help a group of people like feel okay or whatever. And it's like, but then I compromise my own integrity.
Totally. Or your own, like sense of...
It is integrity because like I've seen like either like mistreatment or boundaries being pushed, and I'm like, why am I willing to like not feel like I'm a whole person that deserves like an equal interaction or whatever? Like I'm allowing these things to happen once again.
You're putting yourself in kind of an inferior position.
And kind of happily so, because it's the hell you know. It's like the evil you know, right? And not to say these people aren't evil. That's not what I'm saying. It's a way of being.
Patterns of behavior, that are like hard to...
And the only way those patterns exist is because I interact with them. I also allow them to exist, right? So, and for me, I haven't yet figured out how to exist in a way that doesn't perpetuate that with a certain, like romantic dynamics are difficult for me. And so, and I'm sure actually also probably parental dynamics in that way. Like,
Which is, kind of as you gain awareness,
totally,
and the boundaries of like, can I engage with you or not? Or
and that was this, like going back to that the psychedelic therapy or whatever. So I noticed that like I don't have emotion, like it's very hard for me to tap into emotions and also to release those. That's what you have to do. And in order to heal from these past experiences. But then I also like it was very insightful to go, like I touched a bit on this abortion thing. And then to realize like kind of one of the reasons why I was engaging, like for one, engaging sexually with people, like not a million, just two or whatever, but to go, for one, choice is a big thing. Me like feeling like mutuality with both people, equal playing field was huge, right? But then also risking pregnancy. I'm like, okay, that's the self-destructive piece. That is like me. And how...
What is that about?
Exactly. And that's where like the drugs, for lack of a better way of saying that, it gave me clarity, which was actually the reason I would even experiment with that to begin with. That was my hope that would give me, and it was like ugly what I saw, because I was like, oh, you're trying to make this happen. You're trying to create a child that you know is going to experience the same pain that you did. Is going to feel the same things that you did. You're risking that. And then you're also risking the choice that you would have to put yourself in to go, am I going to bring this life into this world? Or am I going to kill this life? And this child doesn't exist. Like, thank God I didn't get pregnant. But what is that? And what I was able to see, and again, this is very dark, but I think I wanted, in essence, to kill myself, which has been this like a thing this dogged me my whole life, was that I don't like feeling like this. I don't like feeling like I'm always the problem. And like everything I touch, like just it doesn't matter what I try to do. Like it always causes people pain. And like, I'm like, let's have this thing happen full circle, test it out, and let's kill it. Because then, for one, I'm as bad as I can be, and the thing that I really thought that I would never let happen will happen.
Yeah.
And then I can kill that, and in essence, like kill myself, right? Which is like, again, dark and twisted and super fucked up and kind of freeing in some way to go like, oh, yeah, okay. That sucks. And that speaks to like the hopelessness that I feel always. Like I can never get beyond like always making a bad choice, you know, like what I think could be good, like getting married and choosing this person and having 4 kids and choosing to work in the church ends up in shit.
Yeah.
Even as recently as like my dog, I got a new dog, which is like therapists like, that's a good idea. Dogs are healthy. And he's such a little joy. And then he almost died randomly, which is so strange.
Yeah.
Like how weird. Like I think everyone was like, what the fuck is happening? Why is the dog almost dying? And literally the vet was like, yeah, you know, it was looking like $5 to 10 grand or whatever to like, then I just don't have the money to spend on fixing him. And plus there was no like definitive, like this is the fix.
Yeah.
And right away my brain goes to, what the fuck were you thinking getting a dog?
Yeah.
Like, why would you choose this dog? Of course you're an idiot. Like you choose the stupid, dumb, derpy dog because he's fancy. And of course he's the one that's more expensive. Of course you're going to cause your kids more pain and they're going to have to put him down. And of course you're going to go crazy putting the dog down too because you've invited this thing and every decision you make is bad and wrong and causes more pain.
Yeah.
That's where my brain went.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had to literally talk myself out of that and go like, maybe that's true. What does that mean? Like maybe there is no hope. Maybe you have been set up by God. And, you know, like those are those like really big questions for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, it does feel like a giant setup all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I don't deserve to be here and that I always owe everybody else and I have nothing, like I'm nothing. Yeah. And like, that's just honest.
Mm-hmm.
And that I always get my worth and I have to like seek that external validation. Because without that, like I was like the great wife, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's
those different statuses and
totally, right?
positions. Yeah.
Like self-sacrificing and you know what it's like to be the good girl, right? Yeah. Always doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then now the real test is to just sit with myself and go, yeah, okay, you've seen it all. Like you've now seen that you kind of like want to kill yourself, right? And you are really scared that like you're going to harm your kids because like that's what you do. And there's like not really any hope. And I don't know, like it's just kind of a scary place to be.
Yeah.
And then like essentially like kind of losing your faith in the same regard.
Right?
Yeah. So, which is funny. Like, I don't know how, like these days I keep saying to like some lovely Christian humans, I'm like, I feel like I'm agnostic. And they're like, no. And I'm like, because I think they're scared for like my eternity.
Yeah.
But these days, I'm like, I don't know if I believe in hell. Like, this world is pretty hellish.
Yeah.
And I think
can be,
yeah. And I think when we look at maybe what scripture, I think there's a ton of evidence to go, well, no, the hell they were referring to was like Nero as a Roman emperor. Like those things.
A lot of contextual interpretation.
Exactly.
Are different. Yeah.
Yeah. And we kind of like don't know how to read scripture in some ways.
Yeah. That's a whole nother can of worms to get into. But it does affect these like circumstances of our lives. And
totally.
I can attest to that too with like my faith and quote unquote loss of faith. Like, that left me feeling really like purposeless and lost as well, because that was a form of identity for me as well. Was like totally my Christian belief was my identity. So
to wrap up this confession, thing is hopefully like, I don't know, today maybe for somebody to hear. Like maybe it's surprising that I engage in this way. Hopefully for most of the people on here, they would be like, oh yeah, maybe that all sounds normal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, to go. I think safety, curiosity, and never kind of seeking to put those, like the like the cloth, like the palm branch, like, like the covering
the leaves, the fig leaves.
Yeah, exactly. And seems to be kind of where the magic lies. And to kind of go like, being naked, it sort of feels like bad and wrong because you kind of can see everything, right?
Yeah. The shame that's kind of
totally
attached to nakedness.
Yeah. But to go like what could be is like, oh yeah, I have self-destructive tendencies. I have like a daddy issues. I have like, there's been abuse in my past, but yet I'm not the victim. Like I allowed that, like, and this victim mentality, it's like, no, I'm perpetuating a lot of this shit, right?
Yeah.
So, and the fact that I've struggled with deception my whole life, and now I'm like, the pendulum has swung the other way, but I'm still in some ways giving over like, like how people react to my honesty also affects me a lot, right? So I'm not, like how can I interact with like all these things that I'm trying to lay bare and learn and heal from them, and hopefully like for us all to do that and to not, like I could feel really ashamed about the place that I'm in right now, like essentially kind of being unemployed. I'm working a little bit, but figuring that out, literally like owning nothing in this world, really. Raising 4 kids, like where it probably seems like, well, you should just have stayed married, you dumbass, like, or whatever.
Oh, okay, for one.
But there's lots of easy answers to the problems that I have.
For sure.
They're not the answers for me.
I think it's, I don't know, I applaud. I think it takes a lot of bravery to like be that honest about where you're at, but I think that's also what people, like that's what we also, I feel like I crave, just honesty from people. Like, and for me, the whole part about God, like you saying going back to the fig leaves and like we try to cover, and like in that story, that's not what God was looking for. He was looking for this, like, this is me, as fucked up as I am and as many mistakes or whatever I've made. Like, this is me. I don't know where to go and I don't know what I'm doing, but like, God, I'm here.
Totally.
And like, that's what I see when I like hear this story of you. And I feel like that's where our actual connection to God like can begin, and like in a real way. And I also, like, you might think whatever you think about this, but I also think that like as a friend and as a person who's kind of come into your life in a different way in the last few years, I also do think that you tend to be like really hard on yourself and take a lot of like blame for things that are unnecessarily yours to take blame for or ownership for. And you would say that you're like not a victim and that you've consented or allowed a lot of things to happen to you. But I would also go so far to say that, yeah, you probably have been a victim at times. And like I know I've been a victim at times. And it's hard to say that because I think the people that maybe victimized us, yes, we had a part to play in that. And maybe they were ignorant of their victimizing. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, that still caused harm and caused damage that you've got to work through. And that's not easy.
And I think the fear, and that's where I don't like, is that I've seen how victims can then become like like in this, you can become the thing that you, like, I've just seen it play out so much in my own life.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I get off that ride?
Yeah.
I want to get off that ride.
Yeah.
Like I can't turn into the very thing that hurt me anymore. Right?
Yeah.
And I can't keep believing these lies about myself. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't, like at this point, I know that people say that Satan and evil and all of this were in some war and whatnot, but the war is inside me.
Totally.
That's how
in your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't, like, I mean, for fuck's sakes, like people prayed over me and to deliverance and all that. And I mean, thank God there wasn't some demon talking back to them.
Yeah.
If anything, that showed me more that like, I mean, that helped a little. If like it cleared my mind, maybe.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm like, this isn't, I don't feel some demonic force in like, that's like latched on. I'm like, these are deep-seated, like scary things that are, this is why it sucks, is I'm like, these are true. Like, I had a father that didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, my birth mother probably should have, like, really, like, how I feel about it, probably should have aborted me.
Yeah.
Like, and that didn't happen, and now I exist, and now there's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah.
And my kids feel pain, and my ex-partner, and the affair, like, those are all, that's true.
Yeah.
That is all. And there's like my best friends have felt pain because of like the situations that they've seen me walk through. And I said this, I'm like, pain is a part of my life. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound great. So I'm like, how the fuck that? I don't know. Yeah. It's just curiosity and forward. And
I don't know either, but I think the best place to start is like that self-awareness and your desire to not perpetuate. Like that doesn't mean you're never gonna like mess up again. But that desire is all that needs to be there, I think. Like that's the first step, and that's it. Like we start there.
And I think that's like the laying bare of like, I mean, it's nice to hear people go like, you're not bad and da-da-da-da, but like, that
doesn't always help.
Totally. Like I don't know if all of that uncovers some personality disorder for me or whatever that is. Like we see that in the sociopath, like where we started in this conversation, but there's something here that I'm like, oh, I'd rather just be upfront about it. And like, and I think that's where I want to land this plane. It's like there is incredible freedom in this place that I'm in right now, and embracing and becoming friends with the actual version of me.
And the fears.
To go like, no, this is who I am.
There is a freedom in that, even with all the fear and the
totally. And there's less, like we talk about often, like everyone wears a mask in the world, right? And this is just us going public. And that's the really cool thing about anything public. You're publicly taking the mask off. And then you actually can't fucking put the thing back on. Because you said it. Publicly.
That's accountability.
Exactly. And my kids, like I thought about, am I going to share this story? Because I don't know how I want to teach my, like, I mean, there was a way I would teach my kids about sex outside of marriage before all of this. And now I'm like, well, your mother has engaged. Like, I don't think they listen to this right now, but they might one day.
They might.
Exactly. And I'm like, no, but this is actually what is. And I've seen a lot of people go like, the thing I thought I would take to my grave. Like, oh, no, I'm the exact same as you. I just never talked to. That's all. Like, we can take the mask off. It's okay.
That's what we're about here.
And it's okay if it's okay if it's bad. I don't know.
It is. Welcome to the world, Christa.
So cute. Oh my gosh.
Thank you for pouring it all out here today.
And thank you guys for being here. And thanks, Micah, for journeying. And
we'll see you in season 2.
We hope that you guys, some of you will come and join us and share how you felt like bad people. There's a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.